Hi everyone, welcome to CBN Live. Today we are at the Bitcoin and Blockchain Fair, and this is our second day of doing a live coverage for the ABF, and we've got an interesting lady here coming all the way from the UK.
Yes.
It's such a fantastic opportunity to speak to her because she got an exciting journey, an exciting, I guess, opportunity to share with us. Welcome Genevieve to the CBN program.
Genevieve.
Oh.
That's okay.
Can you say
get
3 times?
Genevieve. I'm actually from Haiti.
Haiti?
Originally.
Wow, how did you manage to come to...
I just travel. I've been traveling since I was 4 days old.
Fantastic.
So
you're very lucky. I wish I could travel as well. I mean, it's so much experience to go to a different country and understand a lot of things.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and also it's important to be able to travel and understand different cultures, because it's really, we are all human, but we all function differently based on the situation. Like in India, traffic. It takes you an hour to get somewhere that probably takes 20 minutes to walk, but you can't walk for the 20 minutes because there's too many potholes. So it's understanding different cultures is very important to me. And I think that also understanding, we talk about Bitcoin and blockchain, really how it's going to change the fabric of our lives. I mean, the internet has changed how we live.
Yes.
And I think this is really becoming what I would call the fourth industrial revolution. It is going to change the way we do trust. So a lot of people talk about how it's going to remove access to middlemen. But in reality, I think that it's also how is it going to enrich people's life. And one of the things I think it's very important for us to do is to really understand it and to get our government and everyone to understand what's going to happen. Because if not, we forget the Industrial Revolution did not create wealth first. It actually created poverty.
Okay.
So when we look at technologies happening today, blockchain, IoT, all those things, what is it going to do to us? How is it going to take our data? Hello.
We got one viewer.
And how is it going to really affect our lives in the future?
Right.
So what I do, in case you wanted to know, is actually in the UK, I sit on an organization called Tech UK. And for the last 2 years, I have been the vice chair for the distributed ledger technology. And what we try to do is educate, and the education is both people who are already in technology, and you'd be surprised how many of them don't really know enough. They understand that it's going to change their lives, but they don't understand how. We also do a lot of work with government, and I'm very happy to say that in the UK we have a champion called Lord Holmes, and he is really talking about how we can use this technology to do everything, such as even delivering support, delivering aids and making sure how is it going to affect trade. And so Brexit, that's going to make things more difficult. We're closing our borders in ways, we're opening different opportunities. So we also work with individuals to understand how all those things are going to affect them, and try to bring in light such things like entertainment, real estate, medical, and even financial. Everyone talks a lot about the Bitcoin. I think it's the most successful project so far on the DLT, and I hope to see others. One of the things I've been looking at is agriculture. I'm a foodie, and that's the part I've been enjoying here. I've been eating my way through. I always knew I wanted to come to Melbourne because you have some of the best chefs in the world.
And number 7 in a row, most livable city in the world.
Yes.
So we got that too.
Being a New Yorker, I'm like, oh yeah. Wow. But what happens is that in the one of the things with food is making sure there's enough food for everyone, and then knowing where it is so that we don't have as much waste. We talk about waste. We talk about access to food, and also this is one of the big things in the SDGs. So another thing for you guys, about the Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 of them.
Right.
And the first one is ending poverty.
Yep.
And the last one is the one which is the most important, which is about collaboration. And really, we need to collaborate. And that's why I'm traveling the world to make sure everybody knows about how we can collaborate. And the blockchain is the biggest thing about that, because it allows us to have our own data, but to share what's important with others. And it's really bringing that dream of the P2P in a way that you can have better control. So,
wow, that is such amazing information that sharing with our community, especially our viewers online at the moment, and such an expertise in this area, in this field. And I think it's going to get better and better, and it's for our future generation, our kids and our grandkids in this industry, especially digital currency is going to stay. And right now, the biggest financial market is the Forex, and the market turnover is $5.5 trillion a day in terms of trading. The cryptocurrency market is about 380 billion. Yeah. So we've got Bitcoin is sitting at 6,700 plus at the moment. What do you see in the next couple of years? Will that overtake the financial industry in Forex?
I think the financial industry, in terms of Forex, it will grow because it is a mean of transferring value.
Yep.
And I think it's important. Like, I'm not an investor in the Bitcoin, but I do receive money in Bitcoin. And you need to be able to understand. You get it instantly, but the other thing is, though, you also need to manage it very much like a Forex. Because what happens is that if I receive it right now, by the time you actually sent it to me, you might have sent it at 7,000, by the time I receive it, it's 6.8. So I now need to be able to look and say, how much cash do I need right away? So how much of it do I sell? And how do I hedge my bets to then be able to get closer to actually being the 7,000 that I actually credited you. So I think that there is a certain amount of volatility.
Yep.
It is not bad, and it can be positive or negative. But it is important to understand that this is a mechanism of getting paid right away. Now, the other play that's happening also is very much around those other cryptocurrencies, which are looking to be utilities. But I think that soon we're going to see something different, which is really the security, which is, because in reality, I'm giving you money to help you fund your company.
Yeah.
And therefore, I need to have a return to it. And that, to me, is easier to digest than a cryptocurrency to, let's say, I want to buy a cup of coffee, I need to buy a token for it. But in reality, I do the same when I'm buying a token for Starbucks. I can preload my card for Starbucks and keep paying. Yep. So that's the thing that people need to realize. So I think there's going to be stable coins, and there's going to be those like the Bitcoin, very much like the dollar versus the euro, where there is fluctuation. The only concern is that there is no government.
Decentralized.
So it's very decentralized, which means no one controls. Good?
Good or bad?
And bad.
Good and bad.
Good, because it means that the value is truth. Bad in that you are looking at sentiment. So therefore, you have to be able to understand what is truth and what is false, which is very interesting that a lot of startups now are looking at how to really be able to remove real news from fake news. But then, what is real news or fake news? Yeah. It's my reality if I believe it. So we really need, and I think we live in a very complex world nowadays, and the complexities are growing and also shrinking. So it's very important to be in the forefront of what's going on, and to be able to also disseminate. So my role is to disseminate information in a way that can be accessible to others.
Wow, that's amazing again. I mean, the information is so powerful in terms of the trend and where it's heading. And we understand that in this industry, the supply and demand play an important role. So if there's a lot of merchant uptake in this industry, right, they like what they see and they think it's going to help them, it's going to save them a lot of money in terms of transaction fee and so on. So when do you see that uptake? I mean, what more needs to be done for business?
Actually, I have a friend of mine who's actually working on a solution. I think merchants would be willing to take it. I just talked about something which I think is the difficulty. Management of the exposure. I actually have a background in treasury management.
That's what we're here for. We're going to get a lot of exposure from you and the expertise.
So treasury management is really part of an organization which looks at managing the cash, understanding what the inflows and the outflows are going to be, so what my obligations are, and how. So when I was talking about receiving payment in Bitcoin, I receive from you and it's 7,000. I actually need to pay somebody else 5,000, but I don't need to take the whole 7,000. So I sell 5,000, I leave that 2,000 in there, which is now 1,800, and let it flip all the way to 2,500 to where now I get a total of 7,000. That's what Treasury does. And so now a lot of small merchants, and this is one of the beauty of the blockchain, is that they do not have the ability to have the staff to do that. So what my friend is looking to do is to create the capability. So his name is Nakul. Hi Nakul. And Nakul is actually trying to create it for the cannabis industry.
That's a big market right now, big uptake.
It's a very big market, but one of the things in the California is the way that the rules were written is when you have the business, it only is for the business of doing the cannabis. So if you need a treasury management or a finance person, you don't get to take that as your cost of good. But what he wants to do is allow for the customers to actually pay in crypto and then to hedge it properly for the merchants so that they have no loss in income. It should be a back-to-back, so the fluctuations should not be there. But should they wish to have an exposure, it will also give them that ability to do so. So, and the beauty of what the system is going to be about is really what we call the chain of custody, which you can then demonstrate who's actually bought, who's actually held, and that is one of the biggest concern for government when you're talking about drugs or crypto, who actually has done the transaction and who were the participant, and that's going to be the beauty of the system.
What I like about the blockchain is this, right? Because it gives you that transparency, and the important thing about blockchain is having that ledger in place to stop all that.
And it's a double entry.
It's double entry?
It's a double, and that's the beauty of it, because the ledger is not one side of the books, it's both sides of the books. So both sides of the transaction get done at the same time. So I don't need to check.
Instantly?
Instantly. In a blink of an eye. Well, blink, we'd like it to be.
1 second?
No, I think right now we're about 15 seconds.
But we'll get there.
But I think that's the thing about it. We're today in the blockchain where the internet was in 1996.
There you go, guys. Mom and dads.
And that opportunity is really what's key. And I think the difference is I actually got to play in the internet in the heydays.
So do I.
Yeah, but we couldn't do much. We were working for a company. Today with this, it's the opportunity to actually be part of this revolution.
Join us. Be part of the revolution.
It's a revolution. We're going to take over the world.
I love this decentralization. I think what we're looking for right now is to partner up with everyone, education, and more exposure. With CBN Global going global, and we're targeting a lot of business out there, a lot of expertise like yourself coming aboard into this industry. I think it will take off a lot faster. There's no turning back now, is there? There's
no turning back, and there's no holding back. No government can actually control. So it's actually important for us to also get our government to understand what we're doing, what is going on. I'm actually for regulation, but not the regulation of the technology, because I think that there are always bad people out there.
Absolutely.
And so we need to be able to look at processes and understand how the processes is changing the way business is done. And if you can do that, then you can regulate the changes that happen. So one big example in some time that government had an issue with Airbnb.
Yes.
I actually don't live in the UK. I live on the Great Isle of Jersey.
Smart. I gotta live there too now.
Jersey is about 100 to 120,000 people.
Is that all? Wow,
That's
interesting.
all. 6 by 12.
Wow.
Of paradise, food paradise, beautiful
Hi
beaches.
guys in Jersey.
Hi Jersey. But one of the things is that it took time for our government to understand what Airbnb was doing, because you can't just come and live there. So you can't just live in any house, or you can't stay in any house. So what happened is Airbnb gave the opportunity to individuals who didn't have the license to actually rent a room or rent their house. That's technology being ahead of regulation. And I think that's the same thing that's going to happen in the blockchain.
Disruptive technology.
Yeah. So you need to be working with government to educate them. And that's why I think that the Australian, the SCI, I believe it is? ASIC is actually looking to start having a blockchain, and also they call it a sandbox, where people can come in and actually look and practice and see how the changes are going to change processes, regulatory, and it's not always all financial.
No, it's not. No. What's important right now is a lot of us want to know this. In terms of government, right? And we know government around the world are starting to see the trend in cryptocurrency. Which country of these around the world are taking this up a lot faster than other countries do you have in mind? Accepting this regulation, saying, hey, we want to be, leading this.
I think that most governments are a bit wary of cryptocurrency, but most of them love the idea of distributed ledger. So one of the countries which clamped down on crypto, but is very advanced on distributed ledger technology, is actually China. They are really supporting.
They announced it the other day.
And really, I think that in terms of the freedom of expression, you probably are looking at Europe, and also the UK is trying to do a lot around that. But the European Union is also looking at different ways to foster that. I'm very happy to see also uptakes in Africa happening. Africa, though, has so many concerns when it comes to actually their borders and everything else. So flight of capital is a concern for everyone. So what happens is that I like to lead more with distributed ledger technology rather than crypto, because the crypto is a secondary factor. What I do love about crypto, though, is that it's allowed for projects who normally would not have gotten funded to receive what I would call crowdfunding. And it is making it much more egalitarian for everyone. So women have always found it difficult to get funding. And if you have a great project now, you can actually get yourself out there and get the seed capital that is necessary to make your idea a reality. So it has both positive and negative, because then it's the misnomer is we're calling it a cryptocurrency. Currency means exchange of goods and also exchange of power, which the government cannot regulate. So I almost want to have a different name for it if we can.
All right, if you can, what would you call it?
I've been trying to not call it crowdfunding. ICO, I call it crowdfunding. Much more acceptable.
I would say community funding.
Community funding.
I mean, that gives, a lot more. The C word is the key to...
The C word in there, and it's really about community. And it's about getting everyone involved, and it's about also getting ideas out there. One of the things I like to talk about is when I first got to California. I live in California.
I've been there last month, I think.
I was there in 2000. I landed, and it was the minute of everybody was doing .com. That was 6 months before the blow. Silicon Valley in Palo Alto. And I remember meeting somebody who said to me, actually, I'm building this website which is going to allow you to have your dog walked.
Nice.
And unfortunately, they didn't do so well. But we have the biggest walker ever, Uber. It walks us.
Uber Eats now. Yeah, you
and Uber. Oh, I did 3 Uber Eats while I was here.
Wow, technology there.
No, but that's the beauty of technology.
Yeah.
And what happens is, unfortunately, in 2000, those individuals didn't get the funding necessary.
Yes.
But today, they would have gotten the funding to actually make it more of a reality, even for a hot second. And you learn so much. I think that I really encourage people to do, because you learn so much from failure. Failure allows, if you learn from your failure, you can then succeed. One big example of that is actually PayPal.
PayPal, yep.
They kept trying and failing, and then suddenly they find the right solution. And that's the key about this. And I think this technology is the next frontier for me.
Yeah. So you keep trying, because Elon Musk now is massive, he's massive, moving on to SpaceX, moving on to
he crashed one.
Yeah.
Crash one, burn, start again.
So keep going, So yeah, before we go, I think we're almost running out of time. I think it's such an informative information. Being you, Genevieve, right?
Genevieve.
Coming on the show today and sharing this amazing information to our viewers, and it's very educational. Now, before we go any further, you mentioned go back to the 4th revolution. Can you share, finally, what do you see that will happen, and what are some of the steps that a lot of our viewers and expertise are watching right now needs to take to make this happen? I know that .com has crashed, and then they just take off now. Amazon, you mentioned PayPal, now disruptors coming in, Uber, and Airbnb and so on. What will be this industry going to do?
We are going to go closer to a share. So if you think about Uber and Airbnb, those are share economy. Shared economy. But the key there is that there is somebody in the middle. Uber and Airbnb are still controlling. So now imagine the reason why they're controlling is because they have provided you with the assurance that somebody has done the verification.
Verification.
Now, with the blockchain, the verification and the timestamp will be there. So you won't need as much power from those middle people, which means the cost. Because if you ever cheated a little bit and went to the Airbnb person and said, I'd like to actually get it from you, you can get a 20% discount. Now, half the time you go 1, 2, 3, the third time they say, why don't you come straight to me, which Uber doesn't like.
Cut out the middleman.
You cut out the middleman.
Got it.
But what that middleman had done is created a trust. Now, we are going to get greater trust with the system. So it is going to change. So what I'm involved in is looking at digitization of assets, looking at agriculture, at medical. So really things that touches our lives.
Oh, that's good.
And so you're going to see real estate also change. But the other thing is about ownership.
Ownership.
So, do you want to invest in something? Do you want to own it? Or do you want to be part of the growth? And those are things that we're going to have better understanding of. And we don't need to go and visit because we know somebody else has done that check. So these are really how things are going to change for us, and we need to be on the lookout for it. I think 2 to 3 years is going to be a total different world.
Wow.
Okay, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much.
And we hope to have you back on board again when you come back to Melbourne, Australia.
Yes.
And what do you like about the food here? What do you like?
I got dropped by Uber at the wrong place, and I walked down Chinatown, and I was like, Lil Burke, I just wanted to go back.
Oh, yeah.
It's what I like about Melbourne is the ability to have so many food. Great Italian.
Oh, yes.
Great Chinese. Yes. I'm like dying for the Korean.
Oh, Korean, and try the barbecue.
Steak.
The steak is good.
Yeah. We love our steaks.
That's why in Australia we call ourselves multicultural. So when you come to Melbourne, there's so many variety of different cultural food, and you don't want to go anywhere because you can try everything here.
Exactly.
Very
thank you.
We want to thank everyone. That was really good. Thank you so much for being here today.
The
first woman that I've had the privilege and honour to have interviewed. It was really good, Cameron.
Thank you, Cameron.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, don't forget to come back and check us out. We're going to do a few more live interviews with some of the major cryptocurrency organizations in Australia, and we hope to have Genevieve, special guest expertise in this area, to come back and hopefully speak to us again to share some more amazing journey. Because I think, you know, you need to update us. You need to give more exposure to our community, to the world, about what's going to happen next. You know,
We'd love to.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye for now. See you soon, guys.